The delegation ships arrived exactly 3 days later, just as Telex had warned. There were 7 of them, representing 7 different species and 7 different opinions about what humanity had discovered. They didn't land. Instead, they maintained orbit around Virtus 7, and the delegates appeared as holograms in the expanded camp the humans had built. Ambassador Jisoo Han had arrived the day before. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for diplomatic miracles. She stood next to Hyun now, watching as the holograms materialized one by one. Bashira was there, the Zephyrin researcher who had witnessed the first experiments. Telex represented the Vraxian interests. There were delegates from the Kryn, the Morpheus Collective, the Hive Worlds, and 2 other species Hyun didn't immediately recognize. And standing in the center of them all was Commander Rakth of the Kryn military. The Kryn were a warrior species, tall and covered in dark armored plates. Rakth looked like someone who had never smiled in his life and never intended to start. "This is a violation of Galactic Council law," Rakth said without preamble. His voice was deep and carried the weight of authority. "You were ordered to evacuate this planet. You are still here." "We're conducting scientific research," Jisoo said calmly. "Research that benefits all species in the Council. Research that gives humanity access to thousands of new worlds," Rakth countered. "Worlds that could shift the entire balance of power in the galaxy. Worlds that no one else can use," Hyun pointed out. "We're not taking anything from anyone. You're taking potential," said one of the other delegates, a floating jellyfish-like being from the Morpheus Collective. "Those worlds may be uninhabitable now, but with enough technology, any species could eventually colonize them. You're claiming them before we have that chance." Nari, who had been standing quietly to the side, couldn't stay silent anymore. "That could take thousands of years, maybe tens of thousands. In the meantime, these planets just sit empty. How is it better for them to be unused?" "Because it's fair," Rakth said. "If one species has a massive biological advantage, they should be restricted to prevent imbalance." "That's insane," Tay said. He had been trying to stay out of the diplomatic discussion, but that was too much. "You're saying we should limit ourselves because we evolved differently than you?" "Yes," Rakth said simply. "For the good of galactic stability." Jisoo held up a hand, stopping Tay from responding. "Commander Rakth, let me ask you something. If the Kryn discovered a planet rich in a mineral that only your species could process, would you refuse to mine it because other species couldn't?" Rakth was silent for a moment. "That's different. How?" Jisoo asked. "Both are natural advantages. Both benefit one species over others. The only difference is that our advantage involves living on planets you've classified as death worlds." "The difference," Rakth said coldly, "is that your advantage is military in nature. If humans can survive biological weapons that kill everyone else, you become impossible to fight. You become unstoppable, and there it was. The real fear. Hyun had been expecting this, but hearing it stated so bluntly was still shocking. "We're not trying to fight anyone," he said. "We're scientists and explorers, not soldiers." "Today," Rakth agreed. "But what about tomorrow? What about a century from now when humanity has grown to fill those thousands of death worlds? When you have the population and resources to dominate the galaxy, we would have no defense against you." Vashira's crystalline form flickered. "Commander, I understand your concern, but I must point out that humanity has shown no aggressive tendencies in the 50 years since they joined the Council. They've been cooperative and peaceful." "50 years is nothing," Rakth said. "Species change. Power corrupts. I've seen it happen before." Telex, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. "If I may, I've worked with humans for 10 years. I've seen them face dangers that would make most species flee. And every time their first instinct is curiosity, not conquest. They want to understand, not dominate." "That's a nice sentiment," Rakth said. "But sentiments don't make policy. The Kryn delegation proposes the following. All death worlds remain under Council control. Humans may conduct research but cannot establish permanent colonies. Furthermore, humans must share their genetic information so that other species can potentially develop similar resistances." "Absolutely not," Jisoo said immediately. "You're asking us to give up our natural advantages and accept second-class status in the galaxy." "I'm asking you to accept limits for the greater good," Rakth countered. "No," Hyun said. Everyone turned to look at him. "I understand your fears, Commander. I really do. But what you're asking for isn't equality. It's suppression. You want to limit us because you're scared of what we might do. Not because of anything we've actually done. Sometimes prevention is necessary, Rakth said. Then prevent your own species from attacking us, Nari said sharply. Because that's what this is really about, isn't it? You're not worried we'll become conquerors. You're worried that if you try to conquer us, we'll survive. Rakth's armored plates shifted in what might have been anger, or might have been acknowledgement. The Kryn do not plan to attack humanity. Then what are you worried about? Nari pressed. The hologram was silent. Around the camp, the other delegates watched the exchange with various expressions of concern, curiosity, and calculation. The delegate from the Hive Worlds, an insectoid being with multiple eyes, spoke up. Perhaps there is a compromise. Humans may colonize death worlds, but with restrictions. Limited population on each world, regular council inspections, agreements not to militarize these colonies. Why should we accept restrictions that don't apply to other species? Tay asked. Because you're different, the Hive delegate said simply. That's not a judgment. It's a fact. Your biology makes you different, and different requires different rules. Jisoo shook her head. If we accept that logic, we're accepting that humans will never be truly equal members of the Galactic Council. Every time we discover something new about our capabilities, you'll create new restrictions. Where does it end? It ends when we're sure you won't destroy us all, Rakth said bluntly. Wu Jin had been listening to everything from the medical tent. He came out now holding his tablet. May I say something? Jisoo nodded. I've been running calculations, Wu Jin said. Based on current human population growth and resource use, even if we colonized every single death world available, it would take us approximately 800 years to fill them. 800 years. That's 32 generations. None of us in this conversation will live to see humanity reach even a fraction of our potential expansion. And in those 800 years, the Morpheus delegate said, your species could change, could become aggressive, could develop technologies we can't defend against. Or, Hyun said, we could become even better allies. We could help you develop resistances to biological hazards. We could share death worlds with species who develop the technology to survive there. We could build a future where our differences make us stronger together, not weaker apart. Vashira's form brightened. That's what I've been trying to say. Humans surviving death worlds doesn't have to be a threat. It could be an opportunity. They could help us understand toxins better, develop new medicines, expand the boundaries of what's possible for all species. Easy for you to say, Rakth said. The Zephyrin have no military power. You don't have to worry about balance of power because you're not players in that game. The Kryn are, and we're telling you that this is dangerous. Then help us make it safe, Jisoo said. Work with us instead of against us. If you're worried about military applications, let's create treaties. Inspection protocols. Joint research initiatives. Build trust instead of walls. Trust is earned, Rakth said, not given. And how do we earn it if you won't let us try? Hyun asked. Before Rakth could answer, alarms started blaring. Not in the camp, but on the orbiting ships. Telex's hologram flickered wildly as he received urgent messages. We have a problem, he said. A Kryn battle fleet just entered the system. They're demanding all human personnel surrender and submit to council custody. Jisoo's expression hardened. Commander Rakth, did you bring a military fleet to intimidate us? I brought insurance, Rakth said. The fleet will not attack unless humans resist council authority. Surrender peacefully and come aboard the council station. We'll continue this discussion there. No, Hyun said. That's not a request, Rakth said. And that's not a surrender, Hyun replied. We haven't broken any laws. We're conducting research on an uninhabited planet. You have no authority to arrest us. The council has authority over all member species, Rakth said, including humans. The council has authority granted by its members, Jisoo corrected. And if the council is going to use military force against humans for the crime of surviving where others can't, then perhaps humans need to reconsider our membership. That made everyone pause. Leaving the Galactic Council would be catastrophic. It would mean isolation, potential trade embargoes, possible military action, but it would also mean the Council couldn't regulate human expansion. You're bluffing, Rakth said, but he sounded less certain. Try me, Jisoo said. The standoff stretched. On the orbital displays, the Kryn battle fleet moved into position around Virtus 7. The message came through at dawn. Hyun was making tea from Death's whisper petals when his tablet chimed with an incoming transmission. It was marked as urgent, flagged by the Galactic Council's highest priority system. "This is probably not good news," he muttered, opening the file. He was right. The message was from the Council's Emergency Committee. They were demanding that all human personnel evacuate Virtus 7 immediately pending a full investigation. Furthermore, humans were being temporarily restricted from approaching any planet classified as biologically hazardous until the Council could assess the situation. "They're scared," Nari said, reading over his shoulder. She had woken up early and joined him for tea. The Death's Whisper tea was actually quite good, with a refreshing minty flavor and a pleasant tingly aftertaste. "They're scared of what we can do. Can you blame them?" Hyun asked. "We just proved we can live on planets that kill everyone else. From their perspective, that's either amazing or terrifying. Why not both?" Tae said, emerging from his tent. He looked tired. He had stayed up late running calculations about how many uninhabitable worlds might actually be habitable for humans. The number was over 2,000. "What are we going to do?" Hyun looked around at the camp they had built. Beyond it, the Valley of Death's Whisper flowers stretched into the distance. Further out, they could see forests and mountains they hadn't yet explored. There was so much to study, so much to learn. "We're going to keep working," he said. "We came here to do research." "Let's do research." "Even though the Council ordered us to leave?" Tae asked. "They ordered us to evacuate. They didn't say when." Hyun smiled slightly. "I'm interpreting that as whenever we finish our current experiments." Nari laughed. "I like the way you think." They spent the morning preparing for a longer expedition into the interior of the planet. If they were going to be forced to leave eventually, they wanted to gather as much data as possible first. Woo Jin insisted on coming along, curious about what other biological surprises the planet might hold. The four of them set out in a small rover, heading toward a forest about 20 kilometers from their camp. The drive took them through several different ecosystems, each more beautiful than the last. They saw fields of flowers and colors that didn't have names in any human language. They passed groves of trees with silver bark that reflected sunlight like mirrors. They crossed streams of crystal-clear water that looked perfectly safe to drink. According to the Vraxian reports, Woo Jin said, reading from his tablet, that water is contaminated with alkaline compounds that cause severe internal bleeding in anyone who drinks it. Tae pulled the rover to a stop next to the stream. "Want to test it?" "Obviously," Woo Jin said. He got out and walked to the water's edge. He filled a testing vial and ran a quick analysis. High alkaline content confirmed. This would definitely kill a Vraxian. He poured some water into a clean cup and took a drink. Everyone waited. Woo Jin swallowed, thought for a moment, then said, "It tastes fine. Slightly mineral heavy, but fine. No pain, no bleeding." "Human stomach acid is incredibly strong," Nari explained. "We can process alkaline compounds that would destroy most species' digestive systems. It's another adaptation from eating strange things on Earth." They continued driving. The forest they reached an hour later was unlike anything any of them had ever seen. The trees were massive, each one at least 50 meters tall. Their trunks were covered in a rough bark that glistened with sap. According to the database, that sap was one of the most dangerous substances on the planet. The Zephyrin expedition tried to take samples of this sap, Hyun read from the old reports. It caused crystalline fractures in their protective suits within seconds. 3 researchers were exposed and died almost immediately, their bodies basically shattered. "Cheerful," Tae said. "So naturally we're going to touch it." "Of course we are," Hyun said. "That's the whole point of being here." He approached one of the trees carefully. The sap was oozing from several places on the trunk, forming thick drops that fell slowly to the ground. Where the drops landed, they left small pits in the soil. It was clearly corrosive to something. Hyun reached out and touched the sap with one finger. It was warm and sticky. He rubbed it between his fingers, testing the texture. "Well?" Woo Jin asked. "It's sap," Hyun said. "Thick, sticky sap. It doesn't burn. It doesn't hurt. It's just sap." Nari took a sample and ran it through her portable analyzer. The chemical composition is fascinating. It's designed to break down crystalline structures and disrupt certain types of cellular membranes. But human skin doesn't have those vulnerabilities. To us, it's just tree sap. Woo Jin was already rubbing some on his hands like lotion. It's actually quite moisturizing. "My skin feels softer." They explored deeper into the forest. Every plant they found, every tree, every vine, had some property that made it deadly to other species but harmless to humans. They found berries that caused neural shutdown in most beings. The humans ate them and found they tasted like blueberries with a hint of vanilla. There were mushrooms that released spores so toxic the Vraxians had classified them as a biological weapon. The humans walked through clouds of the spores and felt nothing. Wujin even picked one of the mushrooms and examined it. "Smells terrible," he said, "but it's not affecting me otherwise." "This is more than coincidence," Nari said as they stopped for lunch. They were sitting in a clearing, surrounded by plants that would kill most known species. To them, it was just a peaceful forest. "This planet is perfect for humans. Everything dangerous to other species is either harmless or useful to us. It's like finding a key that fits a lock we didn't know existed," Tay agreed. He was eating the vanilla-flavored berry straight from the bush. "Earth prepared us for this place without us even knowing it." Hyun was thinking about the implications. If Virtus 7 is like this, how many other death worlds are the same? How many planets has the Council marked as uninhabitable that would be paradise worlds for humans? 2,347, Wujin said quietly. "I checked. That's how many worlds are classified as uninhabitable specifically because of hostile plant life." The number hung in the air between them. 2,000 worlds. It was more than the entire current human territory. It was more space than humanity could fill in a century. "Some of those worlds might still be dangerous," Nari said. "This could be a special case." "Maybe," Hyun said. "But I doubt it. I think we're going to find that most death worlds are only deadly to everyone else. Not to us." They spent the rest of the day exploring. They found fruit trees producing food that was supposedly toxic. They ate the fruit. It was delicious. They found plants that released pollen that caused respiratory failure in Vraxians. The humans breathed it in without problems. They found vines covered in thorns dripping with venom. The venom left mild red marks on their skin that faded quickly. By evening, they had documented over 100 different species that were lethal to other species but harmless to humans. And they had barely scratched the surface of what the planet had to offer. As they drove back to camp, Tay said what they were all thinking. "We can't leave this place. The Council can make all the rules they want, but humans are going to come here. They're going to settle here. This planet is too perfect to abandon. The Council won't allow it," Wujin said. "They'll see it as humans taking advantage of a biological advantage. They'll call it unfair." "Is it unfair?" Nari asked. "We're not taking anyone's territory. These are planets that no one else can use. If we can survive here and they can't, is that really our fault?" Hyun didn't answer immediately. He was watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. In the distance, he could see more forests, more mountains, more unexplored territory. This single planet could support millions of humans easily, and there were thousands more just like it. "The Council is going to fight this," he said finally. "Some species will support us. Others will oppose us. And some will probably try to use force to keep us from expanding. So what do? Tay asked. "We document everything," Hyun said. "Every plant, every test, every result. We build an undeniable case that humans can live on Death World safely, and then we present it to the galaxy and let them decide." "And if they decide they don't want us on these worlds?" Nari asked. Hyun smiled. "Then we'll have a problem. But I don't think it will come to that. The universe is big enough for everyone. There's no reason we can't share it." They reached camp as the stars began to appear. Telex's voice came through the comm system almost immediately. "The Council is sending a delegation to Virtus 7, he said. "They'll be here in 3 days. They want to see the evidence themselves." "And Hyun? Some of them are very angry. This is going to be a difficult conversation." "I know," Hyun said. "But it's a conversation we need to have." He looked around at his team. They were standing in a camp surrounded by plants that should have killed them all, but instead, they were healthy, happy, and excited about what they had discovered. They had found proof that humanity's place in the universe was bigger than anyone had imagined. Now they just had to convince everyone else of that. Hyun sat perfectly still while Tay attached sensors to his head. The small medical tent was cramped, filled with monitoring equipment that beeped and hummed softly. Outside, Nari was setting up cameras to record everything that was about to happen. "You know," Tay said, adjusting one of the sensors, "there are safer ways to do science." "Probably," Hyun agreed, "but none as fast." Through the comm system, they could hear Telex pacing on the station above. The Vraxian had been trying to talk them out of this experiment for the last hour. He had finally given up and resigned himself to watching in horror. "All sensors are active," Tay reported. I'm reading your heart rate, neural activity, oxygen levels, and about 50 other things. If anything starts to go wrong, I'll know immediately. Good, Hyun said. He looked at the small glass container in front of him. It held 5 Death's Whisper flowers and was filled with concentrated spores. According to the Vraxian medical data, the amount of toxin in that container could kill 20 Vraxians. Let's begin. He opened the container. Golden spores immediately puffed out into the air. Hyun leaned forward and breathed in deeply. The spores entered his nose, his mouth, his lungs. He could feel them settling on his skin, in his eyes, everywhere. The tingly sensation started almost immediately. It spread from his nose to his face, then down his throat. It felt like drinking a very strong mint tea. Cold and sharp and refreshing. Not unpleasant at all. How do you feel? Tae asked, watching the monitors carefully. Tingly, Hyun said. Alert. Actually, I feel more awake than I did a minute ago. Your neural activity is increasing, Tae confirmed. But not in a bad way. It's like when someone drinks coffee. Your brain is more active, but everything is still functioning normally. Hyun waited. He counted to 60 in his head. Nothing changed. He could still move all his fingers and toes. His breathing was fine. His vision was clear. If anything, he felt good. This is incredible, he said. I should be paralyzed by now. I should be dying. Instead, I feel like I just woke up from a great night's sleep. This is wrong, Telek said through the comm. Everything I know about biology says this should not be possible. The neurotoxin should be attaching to your pain receptors and overloading them. It should be shutting down your voluntary neural pathways. That's how it works. That's how it has always worked. Except on humans, Nari said. She had been reviewing the medical data on her tablet. I think I might know why. Hyun, have you ever eaten spicy food? Hyun blinked. What? Yes, of course. I love spicy food. What does that have to do with anything? Everything, Nari said excitedly. Listen to this. Humans have something called capsaicin receptors. They're the nerves that react when we eat peppers and chili. They create that burning sensation. But here's the thing. Those receptors are specifically designed to detect plant-based defensive chemicals and not be damaged by them. Tae was nodding slowly. So when the Death's Whisper toxin enters a human body, it binds to the capsaicin receptors instead of the normal pain receptors, Nari finished. It triggers the same response as eating a mild pepper, a tingly, stimulating sensation, but it doesn't cause actual damage because those receptors are built to handle plant toxins. Hyun started laughing. He couldn't help it. You're telling me that the most deadly plant in the galaxy tastes like a spicy pepper to humans? Not just tastes like, Nari said. It basically is a spicy pepper as far as our bodies are concerned. This is insane, Telek said. But he sounded more fascinated than horrified now. What kind of evolutionary path leads to that kind of resistance? The Earth kind, Hyun said. Humans evolved eating plants that didn't want to be eaten. Peppers, nightshades, bitter roots, toxic mushrooms. Our ancestors learned to process plant toxins because sometimes the poisonous plants were the only food available. We adapted or we died, so we adapted. 3 hours later, a delegation from the Galactic Council arrived. Leading them was Vashira, a Zephyrin researcher who specialized in xenobiology. The Zephyrin were crystalline beings, beautiful but fragile. Vashira looked like a sculpture made of blue and white glass, constantly refracting light. I had to see this myself, Vashira said as she materialized as a hologram in the camp. She couldn't come down to the surface herself. The Death's Whisper toxin would shatter her crystalline structure within seconds. Show me. Nari held up one of the flowers. Death's Whisper. Lethal to every known species. We've been handling them barehanded for hours. Impossible, Vashira said flatly. Watch. Nari crushed some of the petals in her hand, releasing a cloud of spores. She brought her hand to her face and inhaled deeply. See, I'm fine. It tingles, that's all. That amount of toxin should have killed you 5 times over, Vashira said. Her crystalline voice sounded shaky. Your neural system should be completely shut down. Woojin Park, the team's medical officer, had arrived on a supply shuttle an hour ago. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke unless he had something important to say. He stepped forward now, holding a tablet with detailed medical scans. I've done complete analyses of all 3 team members, Woojin said. Their nervous systems are functioning perfectly. In fact, the toxin seems to have a mild stimulating effect. It increases alertness and focus without any negative side effects. If this were a drug, we could sell it legally. This changes everything, Vashira said slowly. If humans are immune to death's whisper, what else are they immune to? How many other toxic plants might be harmless to your species? That's what we're about to find out, Hyun said. He gestured to the valley around them. This planet has dozens of plant species that are supposed to be lethal. We're going to test all of them. Over the next several hours, they did exactly that. They found trees that produced a sap, known to cause blindness in Vraxians. Woojin rubbed it on his arm. It was a good moisturizer, nothing more. They found fruit that paralyzed the Zephyrin nervous system. Tay ate one. It tasted like sweet melon. There was a moss that released spores that caused hallucinations in most species. The humans couldn't smell anything unusual from it at all. There was a vine with thorns covered in venom that melted Vraxian skin. It left tiny red marks on human skin that faded in minutes. It's like the entire planet was designed to kill aliens but not humans, Nari said as they sat around their camp that evening. She was making notes on everything they had tested. Every single defensive mechanism we've found targets biology that humans simply don't have, or targets systems that humans have backup protection for. Not designed, Hyun corrected. Evolved. There's a difference. But why? Tay asked. Why did these plants evolve such extreme defenses? Woojin had been quiet most of the day, but he spoke up now. Because they had to. Look at the animal life we've seen. Those insect-like creatures are aggressive. I watched one try to bite through my boot. The small mammals we saw have claws and teeth designed for tearing. This planet's fauna must have been incredibly dangerous. The plants needed maximum chemical warfare just to survive. And humans, Vashira said through the hologram, evolved to survive plants with maximum chemical warfare. It's an impossible coincidence. Not impossible, Hyun said. Just improbable. Earth had dangerous plants. Really dangerous plants. Our ancestors survived by learning to process toxins. We got good at it, very good. Good enough that when we finally reached the stars, we found that most alien plants weren't as toxic as the ones we evolved with. Telex's voice came through the comm. He had been silent for most of the day, processing everything he was seeing. Do you understand what this means? The Galactic Council has marked thousands of worlds as uninhabitable because of hostile plant life. If humans can survive those plants, you could expand your territory across the entire galaxy. We're not trying to take over, Hyun said quickly. We just want to understand. Maybe you don't want to take over, Telex replied. But once word of this gets out, every species in the Council is going to react. Some will see you as allies, others will see you as a threat. The political implications are huge. Bashira's hologram flickered. He's right. I need to report this to the Council immediately. They need to know that humans can colonize death worlds. Wait, Nari said. Can we at least finish our research first? We've only been here one day. But Vashira was already gone. Her hologram blinked out. The team sat in silence for a moment. Around them, the death's whisper flowers swayed in the evening breeze, their violet and silver petals glowing softly in the fading light. This is going to get complicated, isn't it? Tay said. Very, Hyun agreed. He looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the sky. Somewhere up there, the Galactic Council was about to learn that humanity had just become capable of living on thousands of new worlds. Worlds that no one else wanted. Worlds that everyone else feared. He wasn't sure if that was going to be a good thing or a bad thing, but he knew that everything was about to change. The shuttle touched down with a soft thump. Hyun watched through the window as dust settled around them. Outside, the valley was filled with violet and silver flowers as far as he could see. They swayed gently in the breeze, creating waves of color across the landscape. It was one of the most beautiful things he had ever seen. It was also, according to every expert in the galaxy, one of the most deadly. Environmental suit secure? Hyun asked over the comm system. Check, Nari replied from the back of the shuttle. Her voice sounded slightly muffled through the helmet speakers. Check, Tay confirmed, though I still think this is crazy. Your objection is noted, Hyun said with a smile. Opening the door in 3, 2, 1. The shuttle door hissed open. Hyun expected alarms, warnings, something. Instead, there was only silence and the gentle sound of wind. He took a careful step outside. The ground was soft under his boots. The flowers were even more beautiful up close. Each petal seemed to have tiny veins of light running through it. He activated his scanner and pointed it at the nearest plant. The readings made him whistle. Toxin levels are off the charts, he said. If these readings are accurate, Just touching one of these flowers should be enough to kill a Vraxian in under a minute. Nari jumped down from the shuttle, landing lightly beside him. Should be? Well, obviously it was enough, Hyun corrected himself. The reports were very clear about that. Tae was the last one out. He moved slowly, carefully, like someone walking through a minefield. Can we please set up the base camp away from the death flowers? They're called Death's Whisper, Nari said. Get the name right. I don't care what they're called. I care about not dying. They set up a small camp about 50 meters from where the shuttle landed. It consisted of a few tents, some monitoring equipment, and a portable lab that Nari insisted on bringing. The whole process took about an hour. During that time, Hyun kept expecting something to go wrong, but nothing did. The flowers just swayed in the breeze. Some small creatures, similar to insects, flew between the petals. The sun was warm. It felt peaceful. That was what made it so dangerous, Hyun thought. It looked safe. All right, he said once everything was set up. Let's collect some samples carefully. No direct contact with any plants until we know more. Nari was already moving toward the flowers with her collection kit. She had special tools designed to cut plant samples without actually touching them. Tae followed her with the scanner, taking readings of everything. Hyun stayed at the camp, monitoring their vital signs on his tablet. Heart rate normal. Oxygen levels normal. Neural activity normal. Everything looked fine. Nari knelt down next to a large cluster of Death's Whisper flowers. They really were remarkable. She had studied thousands of plant species, but she had never seen anything quite like this. The way the light moved through the petals was almost hypnotic. Getting some strange readings here, Tae said, looking at his scanner. The spore production is way higher than the Vraxian reports indicated. These things are basically pumping toxins into the air constantly. Our suits should handle it, Nari said. She carefully positioned her cutting tool around a single flower stem. That was when it happened. As Nari's tool touched the stem, the flower reacted. All the flowers around her reacted. They suddenly released a massive cloud of golden spores, much faster than any plant should be able to move. The cloud engulfed Nari completely. She disappeared into a glittering gold fog. Nari, Tae shouted. On the station orbiting above, Telex was watching through the camera feeds. The moment he saw the spore cloud, he started screaming into the comm. Get her out of there! Get her out now! She has maybe 30 seconds before paralysis sets in. Hyun was already running toward her. Tae reached her first, grabbing her arm and trying to pull her away from the flowers. More spores released, covering both of them. No, Telex was saying, his voice panicked. They're both contaminated now. Hyun, do not touch them. You'll just spread the toxin. But Hyun was already there. He grabbed Nari's other arm. Together, he and Tae pulled her away from the flower cluster and back toward the camp. The golden spores followed them like a small storm cloud. Nari, talk to me, Hyun said. How do you feel? Any paralysis, numbness? Difficulty breathing? There was a moment of terrible silence. Then Nari's voice came through the comm system. I'm fine, she said. She sounded confused. I think I'm fine. You can't be fine, Telex said. The toxin should have reached your neural system by now. You should be unable to move. Check your suit. There must be a breach! Nari looked down at herself. The golden spores covered her entire suit. Some of them had definitely gotten inside through the helmet seals during those first few seconds. She could see them on her gloves, on her arms. She took a deep breath, testing. I feel tingly, she said. Like when you put mint oil on your skin. It's kind of pleasant, actually. Tae was checking his own suit. He was also covered in spores. I've got the same thing. Just a tingly feeling. Nothing else. Hyun quickly checked both of their vital signs on his tablet. Everything was normal. More than normal, actually. Their heart rates were slightly elevated, but in a good way. Like they had just exercised lightly. Their neural activity was a bit more active than usual. But there were no signs of paralysis, no signs of toxin damage, no signs of anything wrong at all. This doesn't make sense, Hyun said slowly. According to every report, you should both be dead by now. Maybe the toxin is slower on humans, Tae suggested, but he didn't sound convinced. He was moving his arms and legs, testing. Everything worked fine. Better than fine, actually. He felt more alert than he had all day. Nari reached up and took off her helmet. What are you doing? Telex shrieked through the comm. Put that back on. If I'm already contaminated, the helmet doesn't matter, Nari said reasonably. She took a deep breath of the planet's air. More spores drifted into her nose and mouth. She sneezed 3 times in quick succession. Okay, that tickles. But it's not bad. Kind of like breathing in pepper, but gentler. Hyun stared at her. Nari smiled back at him, very much alive and healthy. Hyun, Telek said, his voice strained. What is happening? Hyun looked at the golden spores still floating in the air. He looked at Nari, standing there without her helmet, breathing freely. He looked at Tae, who was also starting to remove his helmet despite Telex's protests. I think, Hyun said slowly, we just found out that humans are immune to death's whisper. That's impossible, Telek said. And yet, Hyun gestured at his very alive team members. Here we are. Nari laughed. It was a sound of pure relief and excitement. Do you know what this means? If we're immune to the most deadly plant on this planet, we might be immune to all of them. Tae was grinning now too. We could actually live here. Humans could colonize this planet. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Hyun said. But he was smiling too. We need to run proper tests. Controlled exposure. I want to know exactly why we're immune and how far that immunity goes. You're going to deliberately expose yourself to the toxin? Telex asked. He sounded like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Of course, Hyun said. I'm a scientist. This is what we do. He paused, then added, but you might want to prepare that medical shuttle anyway, just in case I'm wrong about this. Telex didn't respond. On the station above, the Varaxian liaison was staring at his screens in complete disbelief. This went against everything he knew about biology, about toxins, about how the universe worked. Humans should not be able to survive death's whisper. No one could survive death's whisper, but somehow, impossibly, humans could. Nari walked back toward the flowers. She reached down and carefully picked one, holding it in her bare hand. Nothing happened. The flower just sat there, beautiful and harmless. A little tingly, she said, examining the petals. That's all it is to us. A little tingly. Somewhere in the galaxy, the entire understanding of what made a planet habitable was about to change. The warning lights flashed red across every screen on the bridge of the Pathfinder. Dr. Hyundai stood with his arms crossed, staring at the green and blue planet rotating slowly on the main display. Behind him, the ship's AI repeated the same message it had been broadcasting for the last 10 minutes. Warning. Furtus 7 is classified as uninhabitable. Biological hazard level extreme. 3 species have attempted colonization. All attempts resulted in total crew loss. Approach is not recommended. Hyun reached forward and turned off the warning. The sudden silence made everyone on the bridge look at him. We're going down, he said simply. Nari Kang, the team's lead botanist, grinned from her station. She had been hoping he would say that. Nari was young, only 28, but she had more field experience than most scientists twice her age. She liked planets that scared other people. Finally, she said, I was getting tired of that alarm. Tae-yoon, the mission specialist, was less enthusiastic. He pulled up the files from the previous expeditions and scrolled through the death reports. They were not pleasant reading. The first expedition had been Vraxian. All 43 crew members died within 6 hours of landing. The second expedition had been more careful. They sent robots first, then tried again with full environmental suits. Everyone still died. The third expedition never even made it to the surface. Something in the atmosphere itself had killed them. Are we sure about this? Tae asked, looking at Hyun. The Galactic Council put a ban on this planet. There are probably legal issues if we just ignore that. Hyun smiled. It was the kind of smile that made his team both excited and nervous. The Council banned colonization. We're not colonizing. We're doing research. That's different. Is it, though? Tae muttered, but he was already preparing the landing protocols. He knew Hyun well enough to know that once the doctor made up his mind, nothing would stop him. A holographic figure appeared in the center of the bridge. It was Telex, their Galactic Council liaison. Telex was Varaxian, which meant he had 4 arms, gray skin, and large black eyes that could show an impressive range of emotions. Right now, those eyes showed pure horror. You cannot be serious, Telex said, his voice rising. My people died on that planet. Good people. Scientists like you. They went down there thinking they could handle it, and they were dead before sunset. Hyun turned to face the hologram. Telex, with respect, your people aren't human. We've survived on worlds that killed Vraxian explorers before. Remember Titan 9? You said the atmosphere would melt our lungs. We built 3 cities there. That was different, Telex insisted. Titan 9 was a chemical issue. Virtus 7 is biological. The plants there have evolved defenses that target neural systems. Every neural system. It doesn't matter what species you are. The moment you breathe the air or touch the vegetation, you die. Nari leaned forward in her chair. What kind of plants are we talking about? Telex's image flickered as he pulled up files. Images of beautiful flowers appeared on the screens. They were violet and silver, with petals that seemed to glow from within. They looked like something from a fairy tale. The Vraxian scouts called them Death's Whisper, Telex explained. They're everywhere on the surface, thousands of square kilometers of them. They release spores constantly. Those spores contain a neurotoxin so powerful that it shuts down voluntary movement in seconds. The victim stays conscious but cannot move, cannot breathe. Death follows quickly. It is not a peaceful way to die. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Even Nari looked a bit less enthusiastic. Hyun studied the flowers on the screen. What else is down there? Does it matter? Telex asked. The Death's Whisper alone makes the planet impossible to inhabit. Humor me, Hyun said. Telex sighed and brought up more data. Forests of trees that produce a sap toxic to most species, fruits that cause paralysis, fungi that release hallucinogens strong enough to cause permanent brain damage, water sources that are technically clean but surrounded by plants so dangerous that accessing them is suicide. The entire ecosystem is hostile. Tae whistled low. That's a lot of ways to die, which is exactly why we need to study it, Hyun said. Think about it. A planet where every plant is lethal? That's not normal evolution. Something made this place the way it is. I want to know what. Nari was nodding now, her earlier hesitation forgotten. He's right. This is too extreme to be natural. There must be a reason. Telex's forearms spread wide in a gesture of frustration. The reason doesn't matter if you're dead. Please, I am begging you, as someone who lost colleagues on that world, do not go down there. Hyun's expression softened. I understand your concern, Telex. I really do. But humanity didn't get to the stars by being cautious. We got here by testing our limits. Sometimes we fail, sometimes we succeed, but we always try. This isn't bravery, Telex said quietly. This is suicide. Then stay on the station, Hyun replied. Monitor us from orbit. If something goes wrong, you'll have all the data you need to warn other humans away. But if we're right, if we can survive down there, think about what that means. How many worlds has the Council classified as uninhabitable because of hostile plant life? Hundreds? Thousands? Telex was silent. He knew the answer. There were exactly 2,347 worlds classified as biologically uninhabitable in the Council's database. Most of them were marked that way because of plants. If we're wrong, you can say you told us so, Nari added with a smile. Telex looked at each of them in turn. Hyun, confident and determined. Nari, excited despite the danger. Tae, nervous but loyal. They were going down to that planet no matter what he said. He had worked with humans long enough to know that much. Fine, he said finally. But I am staying on the station, and I am keeping a medical shuttle ready to retrieve your bodies when this goes badly. That's the spirit, Nari said cheerfully. Hyun turned back to the controls. Tae prepped the landing shuttle, full environmental suits just to be safe. Nari, get your sample collection gear ready. We land in 2 hours. As the team moved to prepare, Telex's hologram faded away. Alone on the station orbiting Virtus 7, the Vraxian liaison looked down at the beautiful, deadly planet below. He pulled up the memorial files for his colleagues who had died there. Humans, he muttered to himself. They're either the bravest species in the galaxy or the most foolish. Sometimes I think they're both. On the Pathfinder, Hyun stood looking at the images of Death's Whisper flowers. They really were beautiful. In a few hours, he would see them in person. He would either prove that humans could survive where others couldn't, or he would become another warning in the Council's database. Either way, they were going to find out.